I should start. Good morning, students. Would they hear me? No.
Yes,
But they will not reply.
no, they will reply at here.
Okay. Good morning, students. How are you enjoying your first holiday? Well, we're having Sarah Care now, and we're going to look at the Bible. We're going to look at the topic, the Bible, and the subtopic is the structure of the Bible. We're going to look at the Bible. And if I may ask, what is the Bible? If I may ask, what is the Bible? We say that the Bible is the record of God's revelation of himself to the Israelites and to the rest of mankind. The Bible, as I said, is the record of God's revelation of himself to the Israelites and to the rest of mankind. Take note of God's revelation of himself. That is, this is a CRK class. CRK class JS1 and not Islam. Are you getting me? So it's only CRK students that are supposed to be here now and not Muslim students. Muslim students may be having their own next week, not today. As I said, the Bible is the record of God's revelation of himself to the Israelites and to the rest of mankind. So if you're asked, what is the Bible? You say that the Bible is the record of God's revelation of himself. God's revelation of himself. Now, you are asked how the Bible was written. How was the Bible written? How was the Bible written? How was the Bible written? You will say that the Bible stories were written oral traditions before they were written. They were in oral traditions before they were written. Oral traditions before they were written. So they were in the form of oral traditions before they were written. The Bible stories existed in oral form and were written after the Jews discovered the art of writing. The Bible stories were written in oral traditions before they were in oral traditions before they were written. Oral traditions before they were written. Oral, by words of mouth, telling stories. Stories that their forefathers told them concerning the Bible or concerning God. Take, for example, you're in the house. Your father will call you and tell you stories that happens in your village, in anywhere. And those stories are being handed over to you. I take them down. That was how the Bible was written. Oral traditions. I hope You are with me. Oral traditions before they were written. The Bible stories existed in oral form. Oral is not writing in it, it's not writing it. And were written after the Jews discovered the art of writing. The Bible stories existed in oral form and were written after the Jews discovered the art of writing. So it were what handed over by words of mouth from one generation to another. Words of mouth from one generation to another. The stories that their grandfather gave to your dad or to your mom, you use that story again and you tell your children when you marry, when you have children. And when your children grows up, what happened again? They tell the same stories. That is what is called oral form. And were written after the Jews discovered the art of writing. So in our villages, in our villages, we hear stories of we hear stories of we hear the history of our tribe, our songs, which have not been written. These things that we hear from the family and traditions is known as oral tradition. It's handed over by words of mouth. Words of what? Mouth. By words of mouth. By words of mouth. Words of mouth. So the Jewish parents used to do what? Narrate to their children stories about the call of Abraham, their experiences in Egypt, how they came out from Egypt, their experiences in the wilderness, and the settlement in Canaan. So all these stories we are doing what? Written in what? In oral. We are written in the form of the Bible. We are written in the form of the Bible. So, but in the note I have given you, I said that writing was invented by the peoples of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Writing was invented by the peoples of Mesopotamia and Egypt. You know, civilization started in two places, Egypt and Mesopotamia. Egypt is in Africa, in North Africa. No, Muslims are not meant to be here. Egypt is what? In North Africa, a northern part of Africa, where Mesopotamia is the modern Iraq. So, and we say in history that civilization started in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Egypt and Mesopotamia. So the Egyptians discovered the alphabets, pen and paper for writing. It was the Egyptians that is in North Africa that did what? Discovered alphabets. You know what is called alphabet? A, B, C, D, E, F, like that. Pen and paper for writing. So the Jews learned the art of writing from the Canaanites, who also learned it from the peoples of Mesopotamia. And you should know that the first writing was in the form of pictures. The first writing was in the form of pictures. people drew pictures of what they wanted. People drew pictures of what they wanted. So a sentence was formed by means of several pictures. A sentence was formed by means of several pictures. No problem. If they want to hear what I'm saying, no problem. But this is strictly for Christian students, CRK students. So later, the Egyptians discovered the alphabets and the use of paper and pen for writing. So what I'm trying to say is that the paper you are using, the pen you are using, were discovered by the Egyptians. So the Jews, that is the Israelites, learned the art of writing from the Canaanites. That is the place that they settled. God said that they should settle. They learned it from the Canaanites, who also learned it from the peoples of Mesopotamia and Egypt, who also learned it from the people of Mesopotamia and Egypt. You all know that any place you settle, what do? You learn from them. You learn from what they do, how they behave, how they dress. So the Jews learned the art of writing from the Canaanites, who also learned it from the people of Mesopotamia and Egypt. I hope you are getting me. So Jewish scholars started collecting the stories in the Old Testament from the time of King Solomon. So Jewish scholars started collecting the stories in the Old Testament from the time of King Solomon. You know, the first king of Israel was Saul, and after that was King David, before his son. I'm coming. He said, please write your name and surname instead of your nickname, otherwise you'll be blocked. Who is writing this one?
No, just NTS.
Okay, not me.
This is the manager.
Okay. Jewish scholars started collecting the stories in the Old Testament from the time of King Solomon. King Solomon was the third king of Israel after the son of David. And you know that it took about 1,000 years from the time of King Solomon to write all the stories in the Old Testament. It took about 1,000 years for the time of King Solomon to write all the stories in the Old Testament. The total of 1,000 years. So you know that by the time of King Solomon, the Israelites had advanced in writing, that there were many scholars among them. So these scholars began to collect stories, songs, and proverbs, which has been written down now as the Bible, because they are now advanced. So they started collecting stories, proverbs, songs, and which now is called the Bible, and they were all inspired by who? By God. So we know that the writers of the Bible were what? Inspired by God. The writers of the Bible were inspired by God. It was God that inspired them to write the Bible. It was God that inspired them to do what? to write the Bible. So this is how the Bible was written. The Bible was written. This is how it was written, because it was inspired by God, by men of God. Now we go to, having seen that, we look at the structure of the Bible. We look at the structure of the Bible. We look at the structure of the Bible. The structure of the Bible. The Holy Bible, the book that you're holding, that is in your hands that you're holding, if you count it, it has 66 in the Protestant version and 73 books in the Catholic version. You have to take note of this, that the Holy Bible has 66 books in the Protestant version and 73 in the Catholic version, which means that the Catholics have different Bible that they use, unlike from the Protestant version. And who are the Protestants? The Protestants are those who are not Catholics, like the Anglican Church, like the Methodist, the Baptist. All the churches that are not Catholics are known as Protestants. So they have 66, while the Catholic version has 73, because there are some books in the Catholic Bible that is not in the Protestant word version. Take, for example, if there is a Bible that the Catholics use, they call it the Good News Bible. So if you are seeing the Good News Bible, you find out that it has more books than the ordinary Bible you are using at home, that you are using, even we are using in the school. Unless when you come back to school, I may be able to show you that one. And the Bible is divided. The Bible is divided, okay, into two parts. We have what we call the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Bible is divided into two parts: the Old Testament and the New Testament. So if you are asked what is a testament, you say that a testament means a covenant or an agreement. That a testament means a covenant or an agreement. Can I see the people that are online? Can I see the people that are online? Can I see them, the people that are online? Can I see the people that are online?
You want to see them?
I'm coming.
Okay. Most of them, their cameras are off. Most of them, their cameras are off. These are the only ones with cameras on.
Okay, that the camera on. How many?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
Yes, but normally there's 13 people.
Okay, no problem. So a testament means a covenant or agreement. As I said, means a covenant or an agreement. The old covenant was made between God and Israelites on Mount Sinai in the time of Moses. The new covenant was made through Jesus Christ. So the promises made in the Old Testament are fulfilled in the Old Testament, is fulfilled in the New Testament. Is fulfilled in the New Testament. Is fulfilled in the New Testament. In the Catholic version of the Bible has 46 in the Old Testament. The Catholic version has 46 in the Old Testament, has 46 in the New Testament. While the Protestant version has 39 books. Take note, the Catholic version of the Bible has 46 in the Old Testament, while the Protestant version has 39 books. Has 39 books. Has 39 books. Has 39 books. Why the New Testament contains 27 books. So if you put 39 plus 27, what do you get? 39 plus 27, what do you get? That is 66 books from the Bible. That is 66 books in the Bible, 66. While the Catholic version, you get 72. The Catholic version, you get 72 books. And some of the books that are in the Catholic version, they are known as Tobit, Sirach, Baruch, Judith, First Maccabees, Wisdom, Second Maccabees, Wisdom. Though I did not put it here for lack of time and space, other books found in the Catholic Bible are known as, in majority, Dan, Tobit, Judith, Wisdom, Sirach, First Maccabees, Second Maccabees, and Baruch. 6 of them, making it 46 in the words in the Old Testament. Why I say the New Testament Bible contains 27 books. Making 27 books. Now, if you look at the Old Testament are divided into 3. That is, the Old Testament books are divided into 3. The Old Testament books are divided into 3. They are the laws, the prophets, and the writings. They are the laws, the prophets, and the writing. The Old Testament books. They are the laws, the prophets, and the writing. One, the law, which consists of the religious and moral laws of the Jews. So the law refers as the religious and moral rules of the Jews. They are referred to the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They are referred to the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They are referred as first book of the Old Testament. You know the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They are also known as the Pentateuch. We call it, when you are asked if you are asked what the first 5 books of the Old Testament, what they are called, you can say that they are known as the Pentateuch. And they are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Old Testament are divided into 3. I said the law. The law. The law which consists of the religious and moral laws of the Jews, and they are referred as the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They are the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Some people call them the what? The books of Moses. Some people call it the books of Moses because they believe that it was Moses that wrote them. Are you getting me? Some people call it the what? The books of Moses because they believed it was Moses that wrote all of them. We should also know that, I'm talking about the laws, religious and moral laws. Moses wrote some of the laws when he did what? When he received the 10 commandments from God. You all know, you know that God gave Moses the 10 commandments. That God gave Moses the 10 commandments. So Moses when he received some of the laws, wrote them. So when the Israelites, when they reached the Canaan, when they settled in Canaan, other laws were added. And these laws were how the Jews will behave towards God and towards each other. If you look at the 10 commandments, as for example, how the Jews will behave towards God and towards what? One another. Towards God and towards one another. How the Jews will behave towards God and towards what? One another. Religious and moral laws. As I said, it's divided into 2. Now, we have what we call the prophets. We have what we call the prophets. The prophet teach a valuable lesson about God's relationship with man. Valuable lesson about God's relationship with man. And the lesson, what happens to man if he disobeys God. You know who is a prophet. A prophet is a messenger of God. So they tell us lesson about God's relationship with man. Relationship with man and relationship with man. What happens when we obey and disobey him? What happens when we disobey God? When we obey and disobey him? If I may add, the books or the prophets are divided into two groups. We have what you call the former prophets and the latter prophets. And the books of the former prophets are known as Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. And we have what you call the latter prophets. You have been hearing about Isaiah, you have been hearing about Jeremiah, you have been hearing about Ezekiel. You have been hearing about Ezekiel. You have been hearing about Ezekiel. You have been hearing about Hosea. Some of you answer Ezekiel, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, John, and Micah, Habakkuk, Zechariah, Malachi. All of them are latter prophets. So we have a lot of prophets of old. So all these prophets are called by God to do what? All these are called by God to teach his people to obey his commandments. Once you obey God, this is what you will get. Once you do not obey God, this is what you will get. So these prophets encourage people to do what? To be of good behavior and warn them of the consequences they will have or they will get if they do not do what? Obey God. The prophets. And we have what you call the writings. The third one is the writings. So the rest of the books in the Old Testament are called the writings. They are the Psalms. Some of you have been reading Psalms. You have been reading Proverbs. You have been reading Job, Songs of Solomon, Ruth, Lamentations. You have been reading Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. All these are known as the writings. So I know some of you read Psalm today. Some of you read Psalm 91. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. He leads me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, that comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. They anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely his goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and you shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. This is Psalm 91. All these things are what? The writings. But the other writings that are recognized in the Catholic version are Tobit. If you take the Catholic version, it's Psalm 23, not Psalm 91. Psalm 91, it says, he who dwells in the shadow of the Most High, who abides in the shadow of the Almighty, we say to God, is Psalm 91. But what I have just said was Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. One Psalm 91 says, who dwells in the shadow of the Most High, who dwells in the shadow of the Most High. Psalm 91 said that Psalm 91 says, as you are writing there, Psalm 91 says, I'm coming. He who dwells in the shadow of the Most High, who abides in the shadow of the Almighty, will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the faller and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wing you will find refuge. That is Psalm. I'm sorry if I have said Psalm 91, but I have tried to differentiate Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Is Psalm 23. Why Psalm 91 said, he who dwells in the shadow of the Most High, who abides in the shadow of the Almighty, will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the, he will deliver you from the snare of the fall and from the deadly pestilence. It's in Psalm 91. Why Psalm 92 is, Psalm 23 is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I hope you understand me. So the writings are mostly in the, I have told you the writings, Judith, Wisdom, Zerah, Maccabees, they are called writings because most of the materials in there are in the form of poetry, Most of the materials in there are in the form of poetry. The writings teach us about valuable things about God and his relationship to man. So take for example, as I quoted Psalm 23 and Psalm 91. This Bible, the Psalms show us how we trust God by calling upon him to help us in the time of trouble. If you look at the book of Psalm, how we call upon him in the time of trouble. Like any time I'm afraid, I use in the night, I use Psalm 91. Even some people, when they want to sleep in the night, they'll just open Psalm 91. Are you getting me? So that's it. The 27 books in the New Testament are in 4 divisions. The 27 books in the New Testament are in 4 divisions. We have what you call the gospel. There are 4. The gospels are 4. And you know the gospels, you have the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are what? The 4 books. These are the gospels, Matthew, and the Acts of Apostles. And the Acts of Apostles. The epistles and the book of Revelation. We have the epistles and the books of the Revelation. Just 1 second, I'm coming. 1 second. So sorry for that delay. So have the Christian National, the 2 Christian National Conference. We have the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We have the Acts of Apostles, The Acts of Apostles is different. Are you getting me? Then we have the epistles. We have epistles. A lot of epistles going on. We have Romans. We have Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. We have 2 Corinthians. We have Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians, I say Colossians, Timothy, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, John, 2 John, 3 John, Jude, Book of Revelation. All these are in the New Testament. All these are in the New Testament. All these are in the New Testament. So if you look at the summary of what I have done today, or what you have done, if you look at the summary of what you have done, this is what you are going to take home today, which we have done. That the Holy Bible has 66 books in the Protestant version and 73 in the Catholic version. These questions has been coming out even in the general exam. It has been coming out, and even in NECO. So take note of that. It has 66 books in the Protestant version and 73 in the Catholic version. If you look at NECO general exam, it always come out. You will not see it in your textbook that you're holding. So take notes. And the Bible is divided into two parts. We have the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I told you that the testament means a covenant or an agreement. And the books in the Bible are divided into, the Catholic version of the Bible has 46 in the Old Testament, while the Protestant version has 39. So, and that the Old Testament books are divided into three. We have the law, the prophets, and the writing, as I have told you. And that the law consists of the religious and moral laws of the Jews. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. All those laws, religious had to live in harmony with God and with fellow human beings. And that the prophets teach us about what happens when we disobey God. When you hear the word of the prophets, when you disobey God, this is what happens. When we disobey God, the prophets tells us what happens when we disobey God. And I tell you that the books, the writings are most in the form of poetry, and they tell us about valuable things about God. If you really look at, if you're valuable about God, let me finally say in Psalm 8, let me talk about Psalm 8. It said that, O Lord our God, how majestic is thy name in all earth. That whose glory above the heavens is chanted by the mouth of babes and infants. Thou hast founded a buckle because of the foe, to steal the enemy of the danger. When I look at the heavens, the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which thou hast established. So that's what the Psalms are telling us about God's word. Majesty. Valuable things about God. And an example is Psalm 8. Now I talk about the 27 books in the New Testament. And I told you that it's divided into 4. We have the Gospels. We have the Acts of Apostles. We have the epistles. I have mentioned the epistles. And we have the book of Revelation, the last part of the Bible, the revelation of John. And you know that the gospel tells us about the good news about Jesus. The gospel tells us about the good news about Jesus. The Acts of Apostles tells us about the activities of the early church with the help of the Holy Spirit. When Jesus Christ ascended into heaven, he sent down his Holy Spirit. So the Acts of Apostles tells us about what? The good news about the activities of the Holy Spirit. And you know that the Holy Spirit is still in action today in the life of the church. As you go to church, you see the Holy Spirit in action. And the epistles tells us about how the early church solved the problems that they encountered. And the book of Revelation tells us about the dangers of Christians will face. What's about the danger of Christians would face and to be faithful to Christ. So that is what you should know about the Bible as a revelation of God, as a revelation of God to himself, mankind to himself. This is how God revealed to us. So this is what, and the assignment I have given you is that you list out the books in the Old Testament books. There are some books. List out the books in the Old Testament books. You start from Genesis, the first 5 books, the one I call the Pentateuch. You list them out like that. If you can be able also to have access to the Catholic version, you can bring them out. You can bring those books that made up the Catholic version. As I said, that can make up the Catholic version. If you can able to bring them out, the books that make up the Catholic version. I've mentioned some of them. I said some of them is Tobit, Judith, Wisdom, Sirach, First Maccabees, and Second Maccabees. So if you can have access to them, you can put them there. Baruch, you can put them there. So and the Pentateuch is referred as the what? First 5 books of the Bible. And they are believed to have been written by Moses. So I wish you. That's why I said that if you don't have access, or if you don't have access to it, it may not better. If you don't have access, you can, no problem, but you can Google it out. You can Google it out. But I said you can Google it out, but I have just mentioned them. I said we have Tobit, D-O-B-I-T. We have Judith, J-U-D-I-T-H. We have Wisdom. You know the son of Wisdom. We have Sirach, S-I-R-A-C-H. We have 1 Maccabees. Maccabees is M-A-C-C-A-B-E-E-S. You have 2 Maccabees. We have Baruch. Baruch is B-A-R-U-C-H. You can Google it out, but what the thing you should know that we have what? You have the Catholic version is different, and there are 73 books in the Catholic version. While in the Old Protestant is 66, 39 in Old Testament, 46 in New Testament, in Old Testament in the Catholic version, but in the New Testament is the same. New Testament is the same. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Are we? No, no, don't write the division. Don't. No, just don't write the divisions. Just put them like that. Old Testament, Genesis, or like that. New Testament, you mention them. Don't write the. I don't need the this thing. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.